Hey guys, welcome to the first ever inaugural podcast of the Punchin In Podcast. My name is Richie Guerriero. I'll be co-hosting. We're down here in lovely South Florida, Coconut Creek at the world famous American Top Team Gym. I'm here with
Dan Lambert. I'm in admin over here at the gym.
That's all you'll ever be in.
That's all right.
All right. Behind the stick, we got Primo handling all the other technical aspects of what's going on here. So what's this podcast about? Why you guys should listen? We're going to do some crazy interviews. We'll get that long-haired dude you guys like to call Jesus, Street Jesus, Mr. Super Necessary. We're going to get Masvidal on next week. We'll get guys like, we'll get some biggest stars here, UFC champions, Amanda Nunes. We'll get the Kayla Harrisons. We'll get the FBI agent that, what's his story, Dan? You want to tell about him?
Just a longtime student at one of our gyms, runs the FBI division down here, actually interrogated Saddam Hussein.
I can't wait to talk to him about that. That's awesome.
It's just the people that we come in contact with over all the years, with the number of fighters we have and the different places we go for all the fights. We come into contact with people from all walks of life, lots of interesting people, and we'll bring them in.
I want to grab my boy. Quick shout out to Eddie Gallagher. Go buy his book. Super cool dude. Crazy story. We'll get him down here. I want to grab Icy Mike. We'll grab him on the show. So like you said, just we run into a ton of interesting and different characters. They're all going to make great interviews. We'll get them on here. We'll find out about them. We'll talk about sports betting specifically as it relates to MMA. We might delve off into something else, but our forte is MMA, and that's what this show is going to be about. We're going to hope to make you guys some money, a little bit of jingle in your pocket over the weekend, why you should bet, how you should bet. Dan's going to go into his system, so stick around for that. He's got you got to see his balance sheet. So that's going to be crazy to look at and go over. We'll take some questions. We'll put them out there from time to time from you guys. And the funnest part for me is going to be talking about our training stories. We've been doing this for 20 years, maybe a little bit longer. One of the stories to stick around for is going to be this epic Jeff Monson story. Definitely one of my favorites. Dan, anything on the stories, the behind the scenes stuff that happens here and kind of why we decided to do this podcast?
Well, as far as the stories go, we have 100 pro fighters here, and we've always had one of, if not the largest gyms in the world. So just have more issues pop up than other gyms have pop up because we have more people here at any given time. Some of the stories are epic. Some of them probably have to remain buried, but sometimes we get on a roll and,
they'll leak out.
Shit just kind of starts flowing from the gums. So, a lot of great stories. As far as why we decided to do a podcast, we've just had so many people over the years tell us, God, the craziness that goes on in this gym, you guys got to do a reality show. You ought to do a podcast. And we've always just kind of blown it off. And a couple months ago, we had Scott Coker down from Bellator, and he was touring the gym. We went out to lunch, and we just do what we do. We're busting balls. We're telling stories. And he looked at us and said, why the hell haven't you guys done a podcast? You're out of your minds.
Shout out to
hear this shit.
Shout out to Scott Coker and his stepson, Jordan. Awesome guys. First time I met them, they were great.
Yeah, they're great guys. So we said, why not? Let's give it a shot.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to also talk about this past weekend's fights. Whether we win or lose, we'll talk about it. Sometimes we're going to eat shit from a bad weekend, and sometimes we're going to gloat a little bit. So, we get super happy. Obviously, we're a little bit biased when our guys win, so we'll talk about that. Bottom line, if you're an MMA fan, you like gambling, you like talking sports, you like busting balls, this is the right podcast for you. If it's not, it means you probably don't have any friends. So hopefully you can go share it with somebody and we can go from there. Right, Dan?
All right, let's go.
All right. First off, let's jump into this past weekend's fights. It was in Vegas. It was awesome. It was the first live show in Vegas. Wasn't the first live show in the that they've done. UFC's done since COVID, but the first live show they've done with fans, with a huge audience, and I don't know how many the T-Mobile has out there.
22-ish.
It was awesome. I mean, the energy was popping. It was like it used to be. So that was just great to be back there with no masks.
And it was a Conor show. Conor shows are great.
And a DP show, which is always fight of the night. So why don't we talk about that big fight? What were your thoughts on that?
I guess DP first thought is, in the words of the great Nate Diaz, not surprised, motherfuckers.
Yeah. I think you were uber confident. It's funny because there's a couple fights that I get uber confident on that you're like, holy shit. And there's some fights that you say, I'm fucking so uber confident, which usually scares me. But man, he was firing on all cylinders, DP.
Dustin, if you watch Dustin's progression over the years, Dustin has gotten better and better and better. his switching up a weight class made him far more durable.
All the difference in the world. All the difference in the world. I know guys are so resistant. They want to be the biggest guy at this weight class, so they're cutting 20, 30 pounds. And I know that was the way to go early on. But man, what a difference. Him, Masvidal, there's other people, but those two just jump out where they actually finally jumped up that weight class and they are a different fighter.
But, you know, and some people can cut tremendous amounts of weight and recover immediately and not have the after effects. It's
Right.
not a lot of people.
Right.
It's just like there's some people that are uber fast. There's some people that are strong as shit, have crazy knockout power. Some people have crazy good chins, although those go away over the years if you keep testing them. But most people, that drastic of a weight cut, I mean, Dustin Poirier was at one point where he's like slicing almonds and shit in his diet.
I remember we were at the old gym and I was just talking to him. I said, DP, what's the diet like? What are you eating today? He goes, I've got an almond and a half. And I'm a fucking almond and a half. Are you fucking serious? I just, holy shit. So the things these guys go through is amazing. You know, not only the training, but the weight cut that leads up to it. That's almost a fight in itself. That's such a different component than the fight. You know, they have to take care of that first, which is huge for some guys. So great to see DP go up. Great to see the success he's had. He's a decent guy. Great guy, I should say. He's doing great things out there. And his progression, like you said, is just phenomenal. His skill level.
And his defense has gotten so much better.
I wish he would just stop dropping amateurs here.
Amateurs with like 20 kickboxing
right?
fights. And
fucking tool. Not Dustin, the idiot who said that.
Hey, some people talk smack. That's their shtick.
Right.
I get that as much as anybody. But
really? You talk shit?
But facts are facts. And just getting back to Dustin real quick.
Yeah.
He, he's in a lot of wars, as you've seen through the years, because the guy has one speed and he wants to go and he wants to put on a show and he's not looking there to grind out a decision. He wants to hurt people and he wants to put on exciting fights. But if you watch him over the years, he has gotten more and more disciplined and he gets hit a lot less. And that makes for a much longer career. And that's why the guy's got 34, 35 fights or so, and he's getting better every fight still. And he's more durable and he's still as dangerous in the fifth round as he was in the first round. And he's going to be a tough out.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I've noticed that Dustin has actually done a better job with is his wrestling. That's improved. So I just want to shout out his coaches that are sometimes they're a little bit behind the scenes and probably not, but Mike Brown, Dia Davis, Pitbull, who's been helping him out, even Sab as a training partner. So I know his core coaches, though, are Mike Brown and Dia Davis. They do a great job with him. So I just want to give those guys a little bit of a shout out.
The results speak for themselves.
Yeah. And those coaches have been with us a long time. And we'll get into that as far as our coaches and how we process them and get them in the mix. I think is a pretty cool story. So maybe we'll talk about that with Brownie at some point.
And you mentioned the wrestling. I do want to bring up one point.
Stephen Mako.
Mako's a beast. But when it comes to the wrestling, you talked about this fight. Conor, the first one to shoot for a takedown is a dusty bitch. I want to point out, if you watch that fight, Dustin had a couple feints for takedowns to set up his striking, but the clinching that led to the takedown was actually initiated by Conor.
Yeah.
Dustin landed a couple hard straight lefts, and Conor clinched, which that's part of fighting.
Right.
You need to take a little break, you clinch. But when you clinch with a guy, that's when a guy might look for a takedown.
Right.
And I thought it was ironic.
Yeah, usually is. Especially what was ironic is who's going to go out on a stretcher.
Speaking of irony, and this is one that kind of bit me in the ass a little bit. I'm not really proud of this one, but it's a small world in MMA between the coaches, between the managers, and it's a pretty tight clique. And there's some people that don't like each other, obviously, but more so than not, there's a lot of people that do like each other.
Right.
And they joke around. You're talking the day before a big fight between your guy and their guy, and you're breaking the ice. And I was actually talking with Conor's manager at the weigh-ins the day before the fight. And we're very cordial. He's a friend of mine, audience, our great guy, and very successful guy. There's a reason for it. But he's getting ready to leave because Conor's getting ready to weigh. I got to go. Conor's getting ready to weigh. I said, okay, buddy, I can't say good luck. You're fighting my guy, but break a leg. And I probably won't be using that line again.
Rude.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hopefully he heals up well. I hate to see any fighter, whether we like him or don't like him, or fans or not fans. I don't like to see any injuries. I don't like to see somebody get hurt in a fight and stay injured or anything like that. So, I do hope he has successful surgery, which I understood he did, and he heals up. And hey, if they do a fourth one, great. And if they don't, I hope he does heal up.
For the record, I am a Conor McGregor fan.
Yeah. I mean, I love the shit talking. Somebody asked me, I think we were doing some Instagram lives. What do you think about that fight? So I think Dustin's going to win. What do you think about Conor's talk? Shit talk. It's awesome. I love it.
And
as long as it doesn't cross a certain line. I think he kind of got a little bit away with himself in this last fight. I don't really like people talking about people's kids and shit like that. That kind of, to me, crosses the line. But
he's also a really, really good fighter. I mean, look at some of the heads that he has on his mantle over the years. The Eddie Alvarez, the Jose Aldos. Dustin Poirier has a knockout win over Dustin Poirier. And he's the guy has beat Max Holloway.
I wouldn't take anything away. I wouldn't take anything away from Conor. He lives up to his shit talking, which makes his shit talking so effective.
Agreed.
And almost like Ali in a certain, it was so brash and all this, but when you're walking the walk, and that's what it's all about. You got anything else on that fight or the card that you wanted to talk about?
I just have a great card, a lot of finishes, tons of finishes.
Awesome.
So it's what everything you want in a UFC card. Headline, huge headliner, crazy excitement. The Irish fans
love them.
Like nothing I've ever seen before. I actually went over to Dublin when Conor fought Diego Brandao, who was going to fight Cole Miller on that show originally. So I was going to go over with Cole. And I wanted to see Ireland. I wanted to experience the Irish crowd. And I took my kid. God,
bad move.
She may have been like 8 years old at the time or something like that. But I took one of my daughters. And I'm going over there. I'm telling them that this guy is going to be a superstar. You got to watch this guy. As you grew up, this guy is going to be a beast. And the Irish crowd there was... I almost went there not being a fan, and I left there a huge fan of Conor and of the crowd. I told my kid during the fight, I said, okay, it's going to be over soon. As soon as the fight is over, the ref waves it off. However it finishes, we are going to haul ass. I'm going to grab your hand, and we are going to go up those stands quickly because these guys are going to go nuts.
That's awesome.
And I probably got 3 steps up there, and I literally had to fight my way out of that crowd. And it wasn't in any way a nasty situation. These guys are rolling down the aisles, wrestling in fun, beer flying everywhere. It was unbelievable. Was
that the O2 Arena? Where was that at? No, not the O2. That's in London.
That's in London.
Sorry.
I don't know the name of it.
How many people were in the arena? What would you guesstimate?
Probably 10% as many as it sounded like. It was unbelievable. They're the greatest fans I've ever seen.
I think was it Conor's first fight in Vegas? Was it Mendez?
I don't know if it was his first fight there or not. I mean, I think he fought Dustin in Vegas prior, during the build-up, but it was his first title shot. It was his first title fight.
I forgot what fight it was when we went out there, and I forgot what hotel we stayed in at the time, and maybe it was the
MGM
or the Treasure.
I think it was when he fought Mendez on the Lawler undercard.
Right. So we went out there, and I just remember walking through the crowd, and you couldn't walk anywhere. It was a sea of people, and they were just going crazy and chanting, and they basically took over. It was probably one of the most epic scenes. I wish I had it on my phone still. I remember sending it to some people years ago when it happened. I had to film it because I was like, holy shit, this is awesome. But always a great card. But it's even sweeter when your guy wins the way he did. Obviously, wish you would have continued on. Don't wish it ended that way. I shouldn't say that, but glad DP came out with the W. Now he's propels him to this title fight with Oliveira. We'll get into that one later on as it comes up. But super happy for him. Also happy for Zalgas, little underknown guy, came on our team, did a full training camp, and he hits this high guillotine that I'd never seen him hit here, which was crazy to me.
Dude, it was actually more like a front rear naked.
Yeah, it really was.
You're right. I watched the fight. I was on my phone because I was walking over to the arena. That was the first fight. And I see it on the front. I'm like, oh, high elbow guillotine. Nice. Right. And then you watch the replays.
Yeah.
What the fuck was that?
Right. It was crazy, but I'm happy for him. He's a super cool dude. And he's got some crazy fans. Every time I do like a live on Instagram, they're screaming, who's Zalgas? Who's Zalgas? I'm like, what are you guys talking about? I didn't know his name at first, but it shows you how many guys we got coming in and kind of forget who's on the mat sometimes. But anyway, great time in Vegas. Shout out to the area. Love that hotel. Love staying there. Just a great time. But this weekend, you kind of put that in the past. Now we look forward. You talk about what a big team we have. We have 4 guys on UFC this Saturday. Bellator, we had 5. One fight got moved. One fight got dropped. So now we got 3 guys on Bellator. And before you know it, you got 7, 8 guys fighting this weekend again. All our coaches are probably gone. So why don't we talk a little bit about that? So we got Bellator fight. We got Cody Law going, Said Soma, and Johnny Crypto Boy Eblem on there. He's got a different nickname every week, so I'm not sure what he's going to come out to this week. But
it's kind of funny. Johnny changes his nickname like people change their shirts.
Yes.
And Richie grabbed him recently in the gym and said, "Hey, Johnny, you can't make your own nickname, first of all. You got to let somebody else make your nickname." To which my response was, "You can't go out there to douchebag."
Right.
And that's what we all call him. But I will tell you what, nicknames aside, Johnny's a beast. Johnny's one of our best up-and-coming fighters. You talk about a guy that can wrestle, that can scramble, that's got cardio for days. Striking's getting better. Won his last fight by knockout. Johnny's going to be a problem for a lot of people at 185.
Yeah. For people who don't know who Johnny Emblem is, he's got a wrestling background from Missouri. Super tough guy. He came down here to Florida. He's working, kind of teamed up with Mako, reached out to Mako. We brought him in. Came here from day one from scratch. He just came with a little bit of a wrestling pedigree. That's not enough to get you over the hump to be in a Bellator UFC, unless you're, just a crazy, crazy high level kind of guy. But Johnny's filled in all the other aspects of fighting, the mental aspect, the striking, and he's still improving. So he's an undefeated fighter, still on the way up. I can't wait to see his progression. We've got a ton of guys like that in Bellator, which is kind of crazy, right?
In that weight division, we got Dalton Rosta in that weight division. We got Austin Vanderford in that weight division. We got Johnny Emblem. I think between the three of them, they're 25-0, something like that, 30-0.
And it's something I'm really going to say. All of them are really, really good guys. I actually enjoy all three of those guys, man. They're super good guys. They got great senses of humor. They're great teammates. They get along good with each other in the gym. They train together. Can't say enough good about those guys.
And if you watch this podcast long enough, you will learn that Richie doesn't just say that out of his ass, because if he doesn't like somebody, whether they're on a team or not, he's probably going to say it. So they probably are really good guys.
I will. And it's funny because how we started and where we are today, we've gone through a lot of shit. We've seen a lot of shit. So some things leave a bad taste in your mouth. Other things you're just super happy to see happen, and the success happen to certain guys. So even a guy like Cody Law, who just came down, another undefeated guy. He's early in his career. He got his jump start here in Bellator, which is great. He's 3-0. Another wrestling background, tough kid from Pittsburgh. Shout out to Matt Factory. Isaac. There you go. Stud. Yeah, and he's brought guys like shipped Cody down to us, and Dalton Rosta, and I think he's got a few more in the pipeline down to us. So we're always thankful for other coaches and teams that send guys our way. We don't try to take credit for everything. I know that. Always like to give a little shout out to their coaches who help build them up and give their blessings to come down here. So that's a pretty cool thing. And then Saeed Soma is on the card also, and he's fighting. Refresh my memory.
He's fighting. Ronnie Marks.
Honey Marks.
Been here for.
Thanks, gods. I like Honey Marks, man. He's a cool dude. He's trained with us before, but he's an extreme couture guy, and we didn't have him back here the last couple camps. So him and Saeed are going to bang it out. May the best one win. May the best man win, and I think Saeed's going to get that fight. So we'll talk a little bit more about some betting stuff coming up. Sure, for sure. Let's jump on over to the UFC. We got Saturday night. Big one is Thiago Moises against Islam Makhachev. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Mateus Gamrot's fighting Jeremy Stevens. That's just a great fight. And we got Zay Kameh on there. He's fighting Alan Boudreaux. I believe that's how you pronounce his name, French guy. But man, Thiago Moises, that's going to be a great fight. Huge underdog. Islam's the next Khabib, I guess, right? Your thoughts on that?
Thiago is... Talking about people who have improved. I mean, Thiago came here when he was like 17 years old, looked like he weighed about 130 pounds soaking wet.
Super nice kid.
About $27 in his pocket, spoke no English. And now you fast forward. I mean, he got to the point where he'd be like, when to hang out with the coaches and with the fighters, he'd be like, hey, boy, the after school's over there.
Bug off.
Go with the kids. Come, come talk to us when the other nut drops.
Go put your gi on. Go to one of those gi classes.
Yeah, but he was very technical.
He was.
He's a really hard worker, and he's getting better and better and better. He got to the UFC, and I think they put him in a little early.
I don't wait. Did Sean have a hard on for this kid? His first fight was Beneil Dariush, who to me, you got to be a little bit of a hardcore guy, I guess. But I've watched Beneil Dariush. First off, he's a phenomenal grappler before he became a UFC fighter, and I know how good of a fighter he is. To me, he always reminds me a little bit of Musasi. He's just super well-rounded, super smooth. I'm a fan of Beneil Dariush, even though he's not on our team. So
no, he's a stud. They put him in a little early, I think, against the Beneil, and he kind of got manhandled a little bit.
Oof, tough first fight.
But then he started progressing, and then all of a sudden, it's like he went from being a boy to a man overnight.
Ripped off the wins against Michael Johnson,
Bobby Green,
another tough veteran,
Alexander Hernandez,
who's a stud.
Dude.
Yep.
But he went from being like the nice, soft-spoken, skinny little kid to it's like he grew up.
Yeah,
you see him in that Hernandez fight, like screaming at him.
Yeah, start talking a little bit of shit now. Yeah, it's awesome.
He went from being a pure jiu-jitsu guy to throwing bombs.
Yeah,
technical guy, good guy. That's a tough fight. He's an underdog, and he should be an underdog. Islam's a beast.
Absolutely.
But you know what? He's got some good bottom game. It's not like Islam's just going to take him down and hold him down and not face any danger and have to worry about it. I give Thiago the edge in the striking on that. Islam's never been in a 5-round fight.
Right.
You know, Thiago has when he was back at the RFA. He was the champion over there. He had a couple 5-round fights.
Now the LFA, I believe, right?
Yes. So, I mean, I don't know who's going to have the better cardio. I've never seen Islam really get tired.
Right.
But never seen him get tired in a 3-round fight. Sometimes the difference between round 3 and round 4 is substantial.
You don't get tired when you're on top of guys grinding and doing what you do, and you take them to your world. And that's what made Khabib so effective, that he took a guy down. He didn't get up. He's on top riding you, wrist riding you, crazy hip pressure, pushing you against the fence, beating the shit out of you, and yelling at Dana White to give him his next fight. So it's easy when you bring a guy to your world. It's a little bit different if the script gets flipped a little bit. We'll see if Thiago's able to do that, keep it standing a little bit more, put the pressure on Islam. I'm really looking forward to that fight.
I am too. He's a big dog, but he definitely has a chance of winning that fight.
Yeah. Next one is I'm looking forward to is the Jeremy Stephens fight against Gamrot. First off, I love Jeremy Stephens. Jeremy Stephens was down here, 10 years ago helping Masvidal out. And I became a fan of Jeremy Stephens there. He was also on a card I made huge money on. I bet on Jeremy when he was an underdog because I knew how much power Jeremy had. And it was it Rivera that he knocked out? It was on the Aldo card.
I think you're talking about the Dennis Bermudez.
I'm sorry. It was Dennis Bermudez. Yeah, I bet big on Jeremy. And I gave him a thank you in the locker room. He probably didn't remember it. But big fan of Jeremy Stephens. I like him. He's a super cool dude. Gamrot's just a Polish buzzsaw is the best word I could describe him, man. He's 100 miles per hour. He's down here doing his training camps. Great cardio. Trains his ass off. I think he trains a little too hard at times. He should probably take the foot off the gas. But what do you think on that fight?
He's an incredible grappler, Gamrot. He is just an incredible grappler. And I mean, I'm not just me. He's just not a leg lock specialist, not a this, but he's good at everything that he does. His striking's gotten way better.
Yep.
His cardio's good, and he's as mentally strong as anybody. I help him get his fights, and like, hey, Gamrot, they did just call me. They were offering. I'll take it.
Yeah, that's great to see.
Can I tell you who it was first? Right. I don't care. I'll take it.
I love that. And I'm sure the UFC loves that. But
absolutely.
But on our end, I sit back and obviously I'm privy to some of the stuff that gets thrown out there on fights and what happens. And you always know a guy's just got a big pair of balls when you say, this fight came up. Yep, I got it. And there's some killers in that division, and this is one of them. And Gamrot didn't blink on it.
And you know, it's funny because I was trying to get him into the UFC. He's actually friends with Joanna. And
who?
He was over at KSW, the Queen.
The Queen?
He was over in KSW as a 2-division champion over there. His contract was up and he wanted to go over to the UFC. And I remember contacting the UFC. And they're like, he's more of a ground guy. He's a little boring. And I'm like, I don't know if you watched his fights lately. His striking's gotten way better. And it was actually a little bit of a process getting him in. And then they finally brought him in. He's had 2 fights there. He's gotten 2 performance bonuses because his fights were great.
Right.
So he is he's a big favorite in that fight, which kind of surprises me because Jeremy Stephens has such good power and has beat
Agreed.
So many good guys.
Man, he's, and also, I don't like to toot the horn here, right? Kind of come off sounding like a douchebag, American top dude.
It's not unusual for you.
That's true. But man, Jeremy's a veteran, trains at a really good gym, right? He's got good guys over there too. So it's not just the gym, it's sometimes it's your training partners, all that. So I'm also surprised that Gamrot's such a heavy favorite. Obviously, I think Gamrot's going to win, but we'll see how this plays out.
I do as well.
Yeah, jump on the last one we got is Zay Kamea, Rodrigo Nascimento against Alan Badeau. Got that coming up. Both guys are on 8-1, 8-2 on their records. What do you think on that one?
I mean, Zay Kamea is a big, strong dude, really heavy on top. Striking edge in that might go to Badeau. That's one of those ones where I don't have the strongest feeling.
Yeah,
I know Zay Kamea is a big favorite in that. I'm not sure those odds are accurate. And it's funny, we'll get into the betting side, and you try to find fights where the betting odds you think are a little off and try to take advantage of those.
Yep.
I like Zay Kamea in that fight, but might not be as easy as the odds indicate.
Yeah, I agree with you. Just to shift, I guess, a little bit. So we're done with that UFC card. Just wanted to throw out there was a lot of buzz early on. As soon as they did the NIL deal, which is name, image, likeness for college athletics and helping guys out. So American Top Team did something. I'll let you talk about it. We're both huge football fans, specifically college football fans. And if I break down even more, we are huge U fans. I mean, tremendous Kane fans here. Dan, you're a booster. But as soon as this came out, you had a tremendous mastermind plan, which I hate to even give you credit for, but it was awesome. You got every football player on the U a sponsorship from day one. That's 90 guys. It's usually 85 because of COVID. Had 5 extra, but every guy is going to get some free money in their pocket so they can go have a good time, go buy that extra pizza, gas money, take their chick on a date, just have some fun. Why don't you talk about that? You know all the nuts and bolts of that.
Yeah, it's not exactly going to be free money because the NIL legislation requires reasonable service to match the compensation they're going to get. So they're going to plug our gym. They're going to plug our team. I'm a huge Miami Hurricane fan, as you are. And I'm also a college football fan. It's always kind of bothered me how many billions of dollars that is generated by that business, and none of it gets into the pockets of those guys. They get an education, they get room and board when they're there. Yep. But people complain about
not every one of them do.
That's true. People complain about the UFC's pay scale. Well, compare that to college football. They're getting dick.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's always rubbed me the wrong way, and it rubbed me the wrong way how the schools in the NCAA fought so hard to keep that amateur status from those players, and the reason's so obvious. They want all the money for them.
Of course.
They want every penny from every booster. They want every penny from every TV deal. They want every penny from every ticket sale in their pocket. It's money. So when the legislation was proposed, and Governor DeSantis down here in Florida, who I think is an absolute stud. I don't care if you're an independent, a Democrat, or a Republican. I'm an independent. If you don't like what that guy's done, rip up your voting cards. You don't know what.
Shout out to the big governor,
Beast.
DeSantis. Love that guy.
He was one of the first in line to get that enacted and put that into place.
Yep.
And I figured let's get the Canes out ahead of the curve. And football's a team sport. MMA is more of an individual sport than football. But let me tell you something. MMA is a team sport. I don't care who you are. Jorge Masvidal might be out there making millions of dollars to fight, whereas Joe Blow might be in this gym making $400. If he wins his fight, but Jorge needs Joe.
100%. You
need a lot of Joes in your gym. It's a team sport.
Absolutely.
Football even more so because there's so many guys out there on the field at the same time. So, I want to get some pub for the University of Miami. I think Miami.
You did. You had every major, and I'll cut you off right there, but you had every major publication reaching out. So it was ESPN hit you up. It was Bleacher Report. It was Barstool Sports. It was Sports Illustrated. It was every local news show. And it was kind of funny. I guess you anticipated. I didn't anticipate that. But, they were reaching out through American Top Team to talk to you on these things and get them set up. But it blew up. I think you got your kid involved. So you got a website going on there, right? You got it. Yeah. So why don't you?
It was a two-pronged approach to this. First of all, I want Miami to be NILU. You hear about DBU and quarterback U. I want us to be NILU. How many kids don't want to go to school where they're going to get some money through their name, image, and likeness? And Miami is a city that has a lot of money and a lot of businesses, and they like a winner.
Right.
We might not have generational fans giving money to the school like they do in Tuscaloosa and at LSU and some of these big state schools, but there's a lot of money in Miami. So I want to be first out of the gate.
Is that money legit money?
In those places?
In Miami?
In Miami. There's a lot of legit money in Miami. But the bottom line is I wanted to make a splash in that. I wanted to start.
The bottom line is you want to bring back some championships to Miami. We want to have those glory days that we had back in the 80s. And it just hasn't been that way. So when you see all this raw talent in South Florida, in Florida in general, but specifically in South Florida, and you get these 5-star cornerbacks from Heritage going out to Alabama, 2 at a clip, and the wide receivers, 5-star wide receivers getting out of here, and they're not here. Why? Why aren't they coming to Miami? Why aren't they staying here?
Well, they want to win. They want to go to the pros, and they want a good experience when they're in college. And money makes your experience better. Right. Money's not going to make a miserable person happy, but money can sure shit make a happy person happier.
So hopefully level the playing field a little bit. They want to go to a winner, and they want to get where they're getting some TV time and onto that next level of the pros. So hopefully what you're doing, which is a great thing, and I don't think people even understand that the company that you set up, which is Bring Back the U, any money that gets filtered in there, there's zero, and I mean zero money that gets held back. Every dollar that gets in there goes back, funneled to the players or to companies that will give that to the players. Is that right, Dan?
We're going to do two things in that company. We're going to go out, we're going to canvas the city. We're going to try to rally the community together, get businesses to endorse players, make the introductions, find a business, explain to them why it's good for them, explain to them why it's good for the players, make them feel good about it. When they want to do it, we'll put them in touch with the players.
Yep.
They can pay the players directly. We don't get anything out of that. Number two, we're going to do fundraisers. We're going to do events. And we're going to raise money. And the monies that we raise, we're going to funnel through the players through local businesses. We're going to go to mom and pop's pizza shops and say, I got $10,000 here for you, but you got to use it to endorse a player.
Right.
You'll get something from that player. He'll endorse your product. He'll hopefully drive some business to you. It's a win-win-win for you. And it's also a win-win for the people that are going to donate money to the cause, because they're going to help their team. They're going to help local businesses, and hopefully they get to feel better about it and feel like they're part of doing something on the field that can change that product and help their team.
Yeah.
So where ATT came into the clip is I wanted to get some momentum for this. So we had American Top Team sponsor every single player on the team, $500 a month. It's $540,000 for the year. And that's a hell of a lot of money. I don't care how much money you got. That's
huge.
That's a big pill to swallow. But you know what? If this thing works for the next 30 years of my life, it's $540,000 divided by 30.
Yeah.
It's a lot less money. So hopefully it's going to be a success. And anybody out here, Canes fans or college football fans, go to bringbacktheyou.com and take a look at it.
And just to break that number down a little bit for you. So each player is going to get about $500 a month. That's $6,000 for the year. So each player is getting $6,000 for the year. And I know some people might say, oh, well, you're taking advantage. They don't have to opt in and they don't have to take that money. I mean, they'd be dumb not to. They're going to get $6,000. I don't care if you're the best player on the team. You're going to get $6,000 for, like you said, doing some sponsorship stuff, whatever.
It's Instagram posts, right, social media.
But that doesn't preclude you from grabbing your other big deals that are out there. So it's just a huge thing for every player getting that money. It's just a springboard to help them out.
And the better players are going to get other deals as well.
Absolutely.
What our focus is, we want to raise somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million every year. And we want to spread it amongst every single player.
That's great.
If we can get every player on the team to get at least $1,000 a month while they're in school, whether they wanted to use it to help their mom pay their rent, whether they need to make a car payment, whether they want to use it to try to get laid. You know, it's just going to make.
God forbid.
It's going to make. Well, being a football player should be good enough in that regard, but you know, it'd be nice to take her out to get something to eat first.
That's for sure.
But anyway, that's the goal. Let the superstars get more deals through other people themselves, but that's the goal. Make it a team sport. Make everybody happy, and hopefully bring it back to you.
Yeah. So again, just to reiterate, any big businesses that are out there in the Miami area, Broward County area, West Palm, wherever you're at, you're big Canes fans, you want to get the U back where it was, you can check out Bring Back the U, go directly through there. If that's too much of a hassle, go to American Top Team's website, send us an email, I'll forward it on, and we'd love to have you on board on that. Jump off that. Now I want to get to some betting. Let's talk some gambling. Let's talk some jingle in the pocket. So you've got a crazy story. You opened up a betting account, one of those live betting accounts. We talk about bets all the time. This is before we were betting big. The only time I like to bet big really is when I'm out in Vegas, because I like to get paid right there. I don't like to wait for my money. I don't like in these offshore things, but I've finally come around to it. You jumped on this a little while ago. You started with, I think, $1,000 in your account.
Yeah, I remember. To the gym, we're all competitive here.
So I need to preface this by saying this is no bullshit. I've seen him put the $1,000 in the account. I watch his bets. I see it. I would never blow smoke up anybody's ass when it comes to money. I just don't. There's no reason to. If we shit the bed, we'll tell you we shit the bed big time. But anyway, you put $1,000 into it. I don't want to take your glory away. Go ahead, man.
All right, we like talking fights in the gym, obviously. Our fights, fights that don't involve our guys, and everybody here is competitive. So a few of us decide, let's start accounts and let's see who can make the most money and build it up. It's more about winning than it is about the money, although money doesn't suck.
Right.
So I started my account in September of last year with $1,000, and we're going to get Primo to pull the account up on the screen and hopefully gives us the cue that it's up in front of you guys too.
Yeah, we're good. Go ahead.
And the grand total right now is $160,299.14. I don't mean to toot my own horn.
Ding. We got a winner.
I don't mean to toot my own horn, but
toot it.
Toot. So we're going to dedicate a segment of this show every week to gambling, sports gambling, primarily MMA, because that's what we bet on. I don't think I'm the greatest person in the world.
I don't either. Wait, stop right there. I don't think you're the greatest person in the world either.
I get things from all kinds of people on insights on fights that I'm like, wow, I never thought about that, even involving our guys who we obviously have some inside information on. I've got a friend who has a kid who's never trained a day in his life, but watches every single fight, and he picks fights and he tells me things about fights like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. But what I think I have that's better than anybody else I've ever seen is my system of betting, the way I gamble, the way I place my bets.
So let me interrupt you there. This is one of these segments where, hey, Dan's got a system, and call this 800 number, and you're gonna get this free lock of the week bet, blah 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 bullshit. But for $9.90, no man, we're gonna help you guys out. Dan's gonna give you this system of his. If you follow it along, you're more than likely gonna win some money. I got my own system where I like to make money. For me, it's more fun. But we also have something coming up called the Lock of the Week, and we'll break that out. It's going to be our college Lock of the Week. And the reason why I call it the college Lock of the Week is we're going to say, bet your kids' college scholarship money on that shit. We'll bust that out. We don't have one of them this week, so we're not gonna fake it. We're not, we've got some good bets. But Dan, keep going with your system and how you've accumulated from 1,000 to 160,000. And the crazy part is, I think you can only max bet on that particular app 500 at a clip.
So 500 on a parlay, $1,000 on a particular game.
Gotcha. Okay, so you're there's a governor there. You're limited, so it's not like you can say, hey, you got a lot of money. You put 50,000 and probably made a bet like Floyd Mayweather, and that's why you're up there. No, man, you grinded that shit out with a ton of bets.
Yeah, my system is obviously far from just doubling up. That's crazy. That's a recipe for disaster. Couple of simple rules.
It's worked for me, but go ahead.
Couple of simple rules. Rule number 1, get a fucking job.
Amen.
Gambling is not going to be the way you pay your rent, the way you pay your car, the way you put your kid through school. You have to have a job. Don't think you're going to do this for a living. If you try to do this for a living, you're going to make bets that you're normally wouldn't have made. I've got my rent coming due. I've got this expense coming good. Oh shit, my credit card bill is due on the 15th. I got to put something on this fight. No, get a fucking job.
And
okay?
I got to interrupt you because that fucking drives me crazy that you even have to say that, because that is common sense, man. It is just, if you weren't raised right, or I mean, you're trying to get from week to week and you're thinking, hey, I'm dropping X amount of money on this game. It's a total lock. You're going to get fucking slaughtered. And that's what brings you down into that abyss of a hole, and you try to get yourself out and double up on next week's rent or borrow money. Don't do that.
I'm not even so much against putting a lot of money on games that you really fights that you really think.
I'm not either. But if you don't have the money to do it and rent's your first priority, that is your priority, not betting on some games.
Agreed. And having that as your priority, being your rent or other bills that you have, is going to force you to put money on fights that you aren't confident in. You just need, or you lost your money. Oh, fuck, I got to double up on, it's Saturday, it's the UFC. I really felt good about the Bellator fights. Right. But now I got to bet on some UFC fights that I don't even really know these fucking guys. Right. But I got to bet because I owe money. So recipe for disaster. Rule number 2, this shit is a marathon. It is not a sprint. You do not have to bet on every fight. You don't have to bet on every fight card. You need to sit back, analyze the fights, find ones that you are comfortable with, that you are confident in, or ones that you see as big opportunities with the odds in betting underdogs, because more underdogs win fights in MMA than win in any other sport that I've ever come across in my life. There are so many different ways to win or lose an MMA fight that odds are not necessarily the be-all, end-all. Just because someone's a big underdog doesn't mean they don't have a chance to win a fight.
Yeah, and also there's, like you said, there's some great value in MMA fights with these underdogs. Listen, you watch these games in pro football, college football. I don't follow basketball that much, but specifically college and pro football. These guys get it down to the point, man. They are making their vig on both sides. They're pretty sharp at what they do. Obviously, there's some blowouts from time to time, but you could really mine some great fights going through them, not only in the UFC, but some of these smaller shows. You know, I know some of our up-and-coming guys that I know are just monsters, whether it's LFA or Titan or some of those other shows out there, and they have odds that come out there. Man, it doesn't have to be a UFC fight. You don't need to put your money on a UFC or Bellator fight. There's PFL.
2-1 underdog in the PFL pays you just as much as a 2-1 underdog in the UFC.
Amen. And those are where those parlays come in specifically, where they're awesome to jump on and use that as your anchor.
Yeah. So getting back to just general strategy.
Yep.
It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. However, during that marathon, at certain points during that race, you're going to come across fights. And this isn't a weekly thing. It doesn't have to be a monthly thing or a bi-monthly thing. It could
be once a year.
You're going to come across a fight that you are so uber confident in. That's when you want to sprint. And sprinting doesn't just mean, hey, I can put $1,000 on that fight. I'm going to put $1,000 on that fight. Sprinting means I'm going to put that $1,000 on that fight. I'm going to do parlays with this guy. I've had fights that I was so supremely confident in that I started betting parlays, $500 max parlays, and I would go out and find pick'em baseball games that I don't give a shit about, I don't know anything about, I don't care anything about, and I'd parlay it with both sides. You take a guy who's basically a pick'em fight MMA that you feel uber confident in, you go find a baseball game where the Yankees are a pick'em with the Cleveland Indians, and I bet guy number X with the Yankees and guy number X with the Indians. Either way, I'm going to win. I'm going to win on a $500 parlay. I'm going to win $900
right
on that fight after losing the other side of it. So you max out on certain things that you were just that uber confident. Is there a risk to that? Yeah, there's a risk to that. There's always a risk to betting, but I'd rather take my risk on fights that I am uber confident in than just grabbing random fights and betting on them. If you're going to bet on a fight just because it makes you more interested in that fight, go to a fucking movie that night, record the fights, and fast forward to the end of it if you're not that interested enough to watch the whole thing. So very important. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint, with little sprints in between based on fights that you're confident with.
Boy, I wish I had the Emmanuel Nunez cyborg strategy for that back then. I went out to Vegas. I was so confident Amanda was going to win that fight, man. That was my home run fight. I went to Vegas. I think I put $1,000 on Amanda, some small parlays, but I didn't have an app at the time. I just go to Vegas and do that. And
you actually put it in Vegas, but then we got on a bus and drove over to LA because they moved the fight. That was the John Jones picogram fight with Gustafson.
But yeah, that was a great one. But we'll talk about that at another time.
When you're uber confident and you've got a big underdog like that, that's when you can take advantage of parlays. And we'll get into that when we get into specific bets. I love taking underdogs and putting them in big parlays and turning bets. This Dustin Poirier fight was one that I was uber confident in.
Yes, you were.
He was not an underdog. But when you have a big fight that you can start betting on early, months in advance, I put that as the last leg of many parlays. I had so many bets come together at the last minute. I had a $250 bet pay me $27,000, which had some monster underdogs in it, but Dustin was the last leg because I was very confident in that fight. And we'll take it on a case-by-case basis, but don't be so concerned about betting fights that you don't really have a good feeling about. Right. And don't be greedy where you have to get instant gratification. You might like a fight this weekend and you might like a fight in 2 weeks. Parlay them.
Absolutely.
If you like both of them, try to maximize the return you have on your bets. You can place bets on a lot of these sites where you place a guy and then you leave the other side open. Or a 3-fight parlay open. Hey, I really like this fight. I'm going to bet X dollars on this fight. Great. But now I really like this fight so much, I want to take advantage of it in the future too. I'm going to do a placeholder bet. That guy's the first leg of my parlay. I like this fight next week. I like this fight 2 weeks down the road. Bet both of them or open-end it and add your parlays as time goes on.
Great strategy. I've seen it work. It's no bullshit. You don't go from where you were to start all the way up there. Betting incrementally and having that kind of balance doesn't work. But again, don't be greedy. Follow the rules. There's some rules to that. Also, one other thing to touch on when it comes to betting, sometimes you look at a fight and say, oh, God, every guy I like is a huge favorite. Every one of them. Parlay them. You take like the Bellator fights. So you got Cody Law, Saeed, Johnny. There are 3 guys. I'm probably going to bet those guys because they're my teammates and I believe in those guys. But I think Johnny's... was he 1,200? Minus 1,200?
I think Cody's 12. I think Johnny's 6.
Okay, yeah. Johnny's minus 600. Cody's minus 1,200. Saeed's basically minus 200, a little under that. If I don't want to bet those fights individually. I'm not going to make any money. It sucks. It's just whatever. But if I parlay them all, it's almost like even money if I parlay all 3 of those guys. So it's 1-to-1. I'll bet that. That's not bad.
I don't love huge favorites. I don't
Neither do I.
As huge favorites.
It's just another way to...
Just because there's so many things that can happen in an MMA fight. There's injuries, there's fluke knockouts, there's, you can be dominating a fight and then one thing goes wrong. Some people get stung betting the big favorites, but sometimes you have a favorite that's a 3-to-1 favorite or a 2-to-1 favorite, a 3.5-to-1 favorite, minus 275. You get a parlay with like 5 fights in there and you think, well, throwing a 3-to-1 favorite in there isn't going to do anything. You'd be surprised at how that can multiply your return by throwing some of those in there. So, when you make your bets on these sites, you go to the betting page and you can add a fight and look at what it does to the odds. And if it doesn't move your needle enough, take it back out.
Speaking of moving the needle, let's move along a little bit because you have one dog that you like coming up, right? Do you want to drop that?
I do.
You want to talk about that this week? You want to wait?
Sure.
You want to wait? You want to hold it back?
Let's go.
Give it to him.
Friday night Bellator. There's a reason guys are dogs typically in the sport. You're not going to typically see an underdog that you think is going to blow this guy out and it's a no-brainer win. He's an underdog for a reason. But if you find a guy that's a substantial underdog and you think this guy has a reasonable chance of winning the fight, those are the ones you want to jump on. And they're also the ones that you want to put in your parlays.
Right.
So
I'm going to speed you along because I want to get to this next story we got coming up. So
what story is that?
Oh, we're going to get to the Bjorn story.
Oh, geez. The Munson Bjorn story.
Yes.
Okay. So real quick. Terrell Fortune against Matt Mitrione.
Yep.
When I saw that fight on paper, I thought that's a pick'em type fight. Mitrione's been on a little bit of a rough streak lately, but he's a dangerous guy. He's an athletic guy. He moves really well for a heavyweight. Terrell Fortune hasn't really fought anybody.
And Fortune has a really big wrestling background.
He does. Division II national champion.
Yeah, he's big, strong guy, really good wrestler. Obviously, he can take Mitrione down, and that's why the odds are the way they are, because they see that fight with Tyrell taking him down and kind of winning from there. But
the first tough, even semi-tough fight that Fortune had, he was against Tim Johnson. He got knocked out in the first round. So I think Bellator is very careful about building fighters that they bring in from ground zero, and they did that with Fortune. I just think his hype got a little bit bigger than his skill set was at the time. I still think he's a good fighter with some good upside, but I don't think he is plus 270 to plus 290, which is what the odds are spread out on some of the different sites right now. I look at that more as a pick'em fight than I do a fight like that. So
you don't think Mitrione's plus 275, right?
Yeah, Terrell Fortune's minus 270,
right.
minus 290. Yes, Matt Mitrione plus 270.
Yeah.
And I think it's more of a pick'em fight. So I look at a fight like that, and I'm going to go into a bet, and I'm going to bet, now I'm going to bet $1,000 on that fight, the max, because I've got $160,000 in my account. When I started my account with $1,000, I was like, okay, I'm going to bet $100 on that fight. But I'm also going to take a lesser amount than that, and I'm going to make that the foundation of some parlays that I'm going to play forward.
Amen.
And not just this week. Not just that card, not just that and the card the following day of the UFC card. I'm going to plug it forward to next week, the week after that, to some cards that are already on paper.
So you might be listening saying, man, I've got a little bit of knowledge. I'm a huge MMA fan. I'm going to take your advice, Dan. I don't know about these other cards. I'm not looking at, hey, man, no problem. You don't have to bet a future card. Use it as a parlay. Maybe you're a baseball guy. Maybe you're a basketball guy. Those are your locks. You know that. That's your world. You know that way better than probably me and you do and follow it. So you can always use that and cross over to another sport and just combine it with that.
Absolutely.
Doesn't matter.
And Vegas was built on parlays. They love guys parlay because something can go wrong in every single fight, in every single game. And most of the time, something will go wrong in something in your parlay. But if you can use as the foundation of a parlay a sizable underdog, and plus 270 is a sizable underdog, and you can parlay that with a few other fights, you'd be amazed at the payout. Like I said, I had a $200 or $250 bet that paid me like $28,000.
Crazy.
That just finished off in that show.
Lunch is on you, buddy.
So I like this fight. I'm going to make some parlays with this fight. I'm going to find other fights that I like. They don't have to be on the same card. Most of the odds on that Bellator card this week are bad.
Too many favorites.
Just because there's just so many favorites. I'm not putting a 600, a minus 600. I'm not putting a minus 1,200 into it. But there's some other fights that I like coming up as well. Like you said, you don't have your college lock of the week this week.
Right.
Might have one next week or the week after that. But this is a great fight to bet, and it's an even better fight to take a smaller amount, put it in a parlay that might get you that monster payout.
Yep. And so just to wrap it up for you guys, so everything Dan has said, everything we're talking about it really comes down to two things. One is money management, and don't be a fucking hog. Don't be greedy. Hogs get slaughtered. Don't ever forget that.
You can be a pig. Pig.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter, man. If you're talking about betting, if you're talking about stocks, just anything, just don't be fucking greedy.
Yeah.
Just
pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered.
Be
a pig.
And like you said, it's a marathon. So maybe you should start running. Speaking of marathons,
couple other quick fights. I'm too old for that shit.
You still want to talk about fights?
Two more quick fights.
All right.
That I like.
Go ahead.
Neither one was this weekend though. So you use this, and we'll get into them more as the fights get closer. But if you want to talk about a parlay that you can maybe throw the Mitrione fight on, Ronnie Yaya.
My man.
Your man, Ronnie.
I love Honey. Awesome.
Kyung Ho Kang, South Korean fighter, July 31st. Ronnie's a slight underdog.
Crazy.
Plus 100 to plus 130. You look at Hong, he's got 25 fights. He's got 2 TKOs. What does it tell you? You watch his fights. He likes to grapple. He's not a big power guy.
Wrong guy to grapple with. Hanayaya is the elite guy. You know, there's. I'm not going to go into this whole diatribe of belts and everything, but you got black belts, and then you got different levels to those black belts. Hanayaya is a grappling god, and I don't think people understand that.
He's as good a grappler as you're going to see.
Yep.
He's as good a grappler as we see in this gym. So Ronnie's somebody you might want to keep an eye on in that fight just because of the matchup. And one other fight, which is the 24th, which is Dustin Stoltzfus versus Rodolfo Vieira.
We were talking about that earlier, weren't we?
Yep. Dustin's another pretty sizable underdog at plus 175 to plus 185 on the various sites.
Yep.
The guy's got decent cardio. He's got decent striking, which puts him way ahead of Rodolfo Vieira in both of those categories. Rodolfo's as dangerous as it gets when he takes you down. He's a big, strong dude with crazy good submissions.
Yeah. Beast on top. You know, he's a beast on top.
But he was also, I believe he was like minus 700 in his last fight. I bet against him because he doesn't have good cardio and he can't strike very well. And if he doesn't get that submission, his gas tank is going to empty quick.
Right.
This guy Dustin is pretty decent on the ground. If you watch his last fight with Dawkins, he's actually trying calf slicers and rolling around underneath. And even if you don't hit something like that, it's good to create scrambles and get up and get to safety, which is where you need to be against Rodolfo Vieira. So he's a pretty sizable dog. He's somebody, you start throwing some plus 270ers with the Matt Mitriones of the world, with some plus 170ers or plus 185ers of the Dustins of the world, then throwing a little Ronnie, which is a slight underdog.
You're pouring gasoline on a huge...
The type of payoff you can get. So this isn't a lock week. This isn't a guarantee week because there's certainly no such thing as a guarantee when you're betting an underdog.
Right.
But these are some fights that you need to start thinking about placing their...
Listen, and you know, Dan's talking about, I put 1,000 on this or 500 on that or 100 on this. And but man, put $20 on a fight, man. Put $20 on a parlay. You can put $10 on a parlay.
My parlays were $25 when I started.
Yeah, so don't think I've got to hit this big thing. And the other thing I want to say is none of this is personal. All these guys that we're talking about is all good dudes, all good fighters. They're all highly accredited. None of this is personal. So when we're talking about a guy's strengths and weaknesses, don't have some thin skin out there. This isn't a personal thing. This is just, hey man, how we're going to analytically try to break something down and make some money along the way.
Or they might be a fucking scumbag. It doesn't matter. I'm just talking about whether I think they're going to win or not.
That's awesome. All right. Speaking of scumbags, I got a great Jeff Monson story. First off, Jeff's a fucking nut. He's crazy. He's been part of our team since the beginning. There's probably 1,000 Jeff Monson stories. One of my favorites of all times is Jeff trying to fight into Bellator. And I'll let you talk about Bjorn and some interesting dealings you had. But before we get there, let me just set up a little bit about Jeff, and then I'll throw it back to you. But Jeff is probably one of the best competitors I've ever seen in my life. I mean, he's first off, he's a gym rat, but this guy would basically do a grappling tournament on a Friday night and fight Saturday. I mean, and this was continuous. I've never seen anybody compete the way he did at the level he did.
Oh, by the way, the grappling tournament was in Seattle.
Yeah.
And the MMA fight was in New York.
Yeah. And there's some crazy stories about Jeff, like just flying over from one country to another and then flying back. They didn't even know about it and fought 2 times on a weekend and without anybody's knowledge. And he just loves to compete. So Jeff, I forgot if he was with who he was signed with originally, and it could have been M1 or it could have been one of the Cage Warriors or over there in England. Yeah, I don't remember who he was signed with, but he transferred that over and or segued over, and he went to Bellator when Bjorn was doing it. And Dan, why don't you talk a little bit about your buddy Bjorn?
Well, the Bjorn and the Jeff story, I guess they're kind of linked in together. Bjorn Rebney is not one of my favorite people that I've dealt with in the business. In fact, he's probably, from a promotional side, the guy I dislike the most in the history of this business. The guy was a fucking asshole.
You're being kind.
I mean, there's just levels. I mean, that's what you're going to get on this podcast. I'm not here to blow smoke up anybody's ass and talk good about someone who's a bad guy, but I'm not here to talk bad about a good guy, good about a bad guy. I'm going to tell you what I think. If we get canceled, we get canceled. So what? We still got a lot of fighters that we can go concentrate on afterwards. So there's different levels of being an asshole or a scumbag in this business. And I believe the top level, other than being a thief, is being fake. And that guy went so far out of his way to say, I'm for the fighters, I'm for the fighters. Dana White's a bad guy. He cares about himself. I care about the fighters. This guy was a fucking douchebag who only cared about himself. And he would fuck. We're going to go into a story with Masvidal next week.
Yeah.
That
pissed me off.
Perfect Bjorn Rebney story. that'll sum that guy out. But let's get back to Jeff. Jeff is a crazy competitor.
So he didn't like to be tied down, right? So he would get with a company, and Jeff wanted to continue to fight at other companies if opportunities came up. So,
Contracts be damned.
yeah.
I mean, who cares? I never read the contract. Well, the contract says you can't. Oh, I didn't read that.
Yeah.
Hell, I didn't even sign it. I had my wife sign it and send it in for me. Still a fucking contract, dude. So Jeff's in one of those countries abroad. He gets an offer to fight in a Bellator show. He takes it. He signs the contract, or his wife signs the contract and sends it in. And then he gets a better offer.
Which wife?
Which wife? Fuck out at the
That's
same
another
time.
story.
Whole nother story. Maybe we'll get Jeff on here sometime.
Yes,
I'm
definitely a guy we're going to get on.
Not sure people believe half the shit that comes out of his mouth, but believe it, they'll be true. So anyway, he signs the contract. Bellator sets up a date for him, gets him a fight. But he gets another opportunity to fight back in KSW, fucking M1, wherever the fuck he was at the time, M1. So
he takes that fight too.
He's like, hey, Dan, I'm going to take the fight over in Russia instead of the Bellator fight. I said, Jeff, you got a contract with Bellator. That's not the way it works. Yeah, but this fight's better. I like this. It's in a different country. What are they going to do? Jeff, it's not the way it works, buddy. You signed the contract. I didn't even read it. You signed it, asshole. You got to fight. So he tries to get out of it. He calls him up and just explains that he should be let out of it. And that's one of the few instances that I agreed with Bjorn. You know you're not getting out of this thing. Here's your contract. We're going to sue you if you try to do it. We're going to try to block you from fighting anywhere else. We're going to tie you up in court for the next 10 years of your life. We're going to bankrupt you. We're going to do this, 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 and this. And they had every right to do it. So anyway, they tell Jeff, we got your fight. We need you to, here's your bout agreement, and you need to return it together with a headshot that we can use on the poster or in our promotional material or whatever.
But this was a war going on between them a little bit. I mean, this wasn't just...
It wasn't one phone. It was not a one call close, that's for sure.
Yeah, they were kind of going back and forth, and Jeff was just dumbfounded by it.
He couldn't believe that they're being such assholes, which is just comical.
Because Jeff's actually a super nice guy. You take the looks away, he looks like a psycho anarchist, tatted up, roided up.
Take away the looks, take away everything that comes out of his mouth,
probably
take
the
away every
nicest guy in the
stupid
world.
thought that goes into his mind, and he's actually a pretty decent guy.
Yes.
So they're back and forth on this, and we need the headshot, we need the headshot, we need the headshot.
Fight,
we got advertising.
It's almost like 2 weeks away from the fight at this point.
We need the headshot, send the headshot, send the headshot.
So Jeff does what Jeff does.
He sends me a letter. He actually calls me and says, hey, I got released from Bellator.
No, wait, nobody gets released from Bellator.
Oh my God.
Ask Eddie Alvarez.
They were before Eddie. I mean, They were so bad back in the Bjorn days. Anyway, he says, I got released from Bellator. I said, come on, no, you didn't. I did. I don't believe you. Well, I'll send you the release letter. Okay, send me the release letter. He sends it over to me. It is a letter to Jeff from Bjorn, and I can just picture Bjorn's aloof language being transmitted in this letter, and I can picture him writing it, which makes it even funnier if you knew this guy. Dear Mr. Monson, as you know, you were requested several times to return your signed bout agreement and your headshot for our advertising. On June 6, 2000, whatever, you sent an email to our office opened by my female assistant. It did not have your bout agreement. And instead of a headshot, you enclosed a picture of your penis and scrotum. My assistant was shocked. This is unprofessional, unacceptable, on every other bull that you can put in the dictionary. You are hereby terminated. Consider yourself lucky we don't sue you for harassment. Winner. For that. Holy shit.
How great is that? Monson finds the fucking way out by sending a
dick pic.
Before it was cool to send dick pics, right? Before it was cool, Jeff finds a way to send a dick pic and get out of this thing. He didn't give a shit what they did, which is amazing. And he got out of it, went on, fought. And I mean, to this day, I'm just kind of stunned. What pisses me off even more is you didn't save the letter.
I went back to look for it so I could read it word for word. I don't know how long ago this is.
It's got to be 10 years ago, dude.
No, it's more than
that. Is it 15 years ago, whatever it is?
10 years
Amazing story.
I know I sent it to everybody in the business, every promoter I knew, every manager I knew, because everybody was laughing their balls off. I would have thought it would have been in my old file somewhere. But holy shit, that's a great Monson story. But I mean, Munson's just a story waiting to be.
Yeah, we've got 1,000 of stories like that. It's actually just one of my just picture that going on, that you're a big time promoter at a big time company, and your secretary or whoever your assistant is going to say, hey, we got a picture of Jeff's dick. I mean, where do you go with that? I mean,
maybe you should have just responded, Dear Bjorn. I thought you said send you a headshot of you.
You did said headshot, right?
No, yeah, it was a headshot of Bjorn.
Well, you might need a bigger dick for that, right? So, hey, we're gonna wrap this up pretty quick. But that was one other thing I want to talk about, Dan. Just getting back to our gym and the training here. We didn't touch on a ton about that today. It was just what our podcast is about, a little bit of what we're going to share with you guys. Up and coming fighters, I always get asked, hey man, who's your next up and coming fighters? Who's your next stud? Who's your next Jorge Masvidal? Who's your next Joanna? Who's your next this, and this? It's tough to tell sometimes, but we've got some fucking sharks swimming around in there. So
I mean, I guess it depends on what your definition of an up and comer is. You know,
right.
Is a guy that's in the UFC already an up and comer, or is he already arrived?
Right.
Because if he qualifies, you got to look at Mosfar.
Yeah.
I mean, the kid is a beast.
Yeah.
And you haven't seen a fraction of what he's capable of. I think I just saw MMA Junkie did like their mid-year awards, and he was newcomer of the year, or up which is awesome. Of the year or something like that.
Super deserving.
As the guys that are in, as a guy that's in a Bellator, we've got the Cody Laws and the Johnnies. It's hard to call Austin Vanderford an up and comer because he's like 10-0 or 11-0, but guy's got a gas tank for days. He's a great wrestler, and he does damage on the ground. Another undefeated fighter. We've got a lot of them.
So yeah, you talked about Mosvar, kind of like under the radar there at the UFC as an up and coming. I'll throw one out there. Danny Sabatello, wrestled at Purdue, came here, ripped off quite a few wins. He's got one loss. He had a little speed bump in Titan, but was on the Dana White Contender Show. I think he won 2 or 3 rounds, 10-8 or 10-7 rounds. He fucking dominated. Just a crazy top game, great grappler, cardio king, gas tank from hell, training machine, gym rat. Now he's finally got signed to Bellator.
You talk about your locks, your college locks of the week.
Yeah.
His first fight in Bellator was against a very established, well-known UFC fighter with an amazing record. And
we knew
I think he was like plus 300 or something like that. He was a very substantial underdog, and everybody at our gym knew he was going to win the fight, and we knew how he was going to win the fight.
It was crazy, right?
That's an instance where we get some inside knowledge because people don't know who he is. They don't really know anything about him. We watch him in here. We watch how much he's progressed since that early loss in his career, and nobody expected it. You take a fight like that and you put that into your parlays. That was a $15,000 night for me, and I think I risked like $1,200,
right?
Because
tremendous.
I parlayed him with some other people on the show. So that's one of the instances where we get some inside knowledge because we got 100 fighters here at our gym. They all fight. We watch them train. We scout their opponents. We're watching film on a few hundred fights a year, so you get some inside knowledge on instances like that, and those are the ones you like taking advantage of.
So Danny's my guy, who I think is just an up and comer. He just got into Bellator. I think UFC made a little bit of a mistake there. I think they should have signed him. I understand why they didn't. They wanted to see more out of him as far as being a little bit more active. I thought he was pretty active. You're so active, you're just killing the other guy. Didn't submit him, didn't knock him out. But I think Khabib, it's just fun to watch somebody get fucking manhandled and ragdolled, and that's what Danny does. And he's also mentally strong, talks a good shit game, which I always enjoy. He's just a really good kid, man. He's a good kid in the gym, great training partner. We got a few more, and we'll talk about some other real up and coming guys as we go through this and some other stuff. But I wanted to wrap it up. I sincerely thank everybody who's a fan of our team. We get a lot of goodwill, whether it's through Instagram or Twitter or even in person when they see us and they appreciate what we do here, what you do, what our fighters do. So we love the support. Hopefully you guys support us here. I just want to ask everybody if they like what we do, if you like what we're talking about, if you like to talk shit, bust balls, talk about betting and all that, and MMA, that's what we're going to do here every week. Subscribe to the show, share the show, rate it, like it, whatever all that good stuff is, and hopefully this will take off, get some legs to it, and we can talk about some great fights coming up. You guys will make a little bit of money, and you're going to hear some phenomenal stories coming up, and we're going to have some great interviews coming up too with some of our fighters. Danny, anything from you?
I think that about covers it, you long-winded son of a bitch.
Jesus Christ, that's how you wanted to wrap it up? You pompous fuck. You are like a Bjorn. We're out, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Wish your dad wrapped it up.
Yeah.